Well, go on, everybody. Lennox here from Simple 123 Trader. This is the weekly playbook outlook for the week of August 8th to 13th. Hope everybody is doing well and are safe. Taking a look at what's setting up for the week in the futures, starting with the Australian dollar, going over on the weekly time frame, showing you what I'm seeing for this week. So far, everything is played out. Again, I'll go over it. Head and shoulders pattern at this point, neckline area, and then price breaking to the downside. So it looks like we're coming to an area where we could get some consolidation and maybe even a move back up, and then another drop coming back down into the final stages of this move to the downside. But right now we're kind of in a small consolidation area, and going down on a daily, we can see whether or not we're going to get a bounce. And you can see that, like I'm saying, we are starting to go up and down, and we could see further up and downs here. Could even see a move back up before we go down, but also we could just drop right through. So there's a couple of different scenarios, and looking at it overall, the overall trend, of course, is still to the downside. So still looking for continued weakness in Aussie. So any bounces to the upside are just opportunities to sell the Aussie dollar. Okay, let's take a look at Bitcoin on the weekly. Let's go to Bitcoin. Here we go. Bitcoin making quite the move back up, and just like I expected. Once we got into this congested area, we would gyrate up and down, similar to what Aussie is doing. We could get that move up like that, same kind of thing. But now I think we might be exhausted and looking for another move back down. So be aware that this can be a move that looks like really promising to the upside, but it really is just sort of like a fake out. Yes, we could probably go a little higher, and then I would expect price to come back down again. So opportunity to catch the top move here. I think we might get close to 50,000 perhaps, and then opportunity to sell coming back down again. So Bitcoin for the week, maybe a little bit of strength short term, but we could see further weakness as the week progresses. Okay, taking a look at crude oil. Crude oil has been on quite the tear, but we reached that resistance and hit it with huge. Now it's plunging to the downside, but how long and how far is that going to go? I think we might be very close to an area where we could turn around again. But let's take a closer look on the daily and see it's looking quite weak at this point. So we could see a breach of this level and then back down to this area. So that's totally possible and workable. And then a move back to the upside would be more than likely. All right. So short-term weakness in crude oil. Let's take a look at the Canadian dollar. Canadian dollar, it too was on a tear to the upside, but hit quite the wall up top, dropped down dramatically, and now it's trying to make a push back to the upside. So is it going to be continuing to push to the upside? It doesn't look so short term. So I would look for more downside in the Canadian dollar this week. If we're wrong, we could see a bounce off this level to the upside, but we have resistance here. So it looks very weak. It looks like we might come back down first. So short-term weakness in the Canadian dollar. Okay, let's take a look at the US dollar. And it too made quite a move back to the upside, but has hit a resistance area as well. And so it's looking like it wants to turn back down. So let's see how it's looking. At this point, it's still pushing pretty strong to the upside, but I think that maybe we might be getting very close to the end of this move. I don't see it breaking the highs, but it could get very close. They might even break the highs just to entice people to go long. So short-term strength, but overall weakness to the downside I see coming up. Okay, and for all the 123 members, strength in the US dollar or weakness in the US dollar is catalyst for playing the other majors. So keep an eye out for its movements. Euro is going to do a complete opposite of what the US dollar is doing. So you can see Euro is sitting at a very solid resistance or sorry, support zone. And so looking that we could get a bounce here, or we could just go right through. So which one is it going to be? So it'll do exactly the opposite of what the US dollar is doing. So right now it looks pretty weak. So that tells us that the US dollar is going to continue going up. So we could see a little bit of a bounce, but overall weakness taking us back down towards that support area there. So weakness in the euro. Okay, next one is the Swiss franc weekly. Also, you can see head and shoulders now. Neckline in this area. So we've got that big move up, and I would see continued weakness for the Swiss franc going into this week. So going to the daily, you can see that we're pointing to the downside here. So I can see this as, if we can get a little bit of a bounce first, but any move to the upside is just opportunity to sell. Okay, so weakness overall in the Swiss franc. Okay, and let's take a look at gold on the weekly. Okay, so gold, quite the drop. Is it done at this point? It could be. It could be at this point. We could be done, and we might be getting a bounce to head back up. But let's take a closer look on the daily and see. Okay, so quite the drop. You can see that quite clearly. And we back down to a previous support area. So we could see a turnaround move back to the upside first. Is it going to be prolonged? Probably not, but short-term strength in gold going into the week. And let's just take a look at Japanese yen on the weekly. Also sitting at a very strong support area as well, and looking to continue its weakness to the downside. So pushing onto the daily, we'll see that it is indeed looking to go lower. So if it bounces, opportunity to sell the Japanese yen. Okay. The New Zealand dollar, also looking similar to Japanese yen there. It too, just like the Aussie, head and shoulders. So you can see the kind of a consistent pattern here. Neckline area, this big drop, and trying to push back up, but I think overall we're going to be heading down. So we could get short-term strength, and then after that, all bets are off, and we're going to be heading down again. Okay, so weakness overall in the New Zealand dollar. Let's take a look at the Mexican peso on the weekly. It's still fighting to get through this resistance area. It's had quite a lengthy stay there. Just cannot break through. So is it ready to do that this week? Maybe not. Okay, so we're still getting some weakness, so we could see further declines. It's possible, but right now it's got a little bit of strength, so we could see a little bit of a decline and then a push back to the up. It's going to try again to break through this level. So watch out for that. It's volatile right now, very volatile. Okay, and we're looking at the British pound. Okay, British pound did not make a head and shoulders, but looking like it might want to make a head and shoulders here. We could see a quasi head and shoulders form here, and then that would bring us back down. So right now, a little bit of strength in the British pound, bucking the trend of the Aussie and the Euro and New Zealand. So go to the daily. Okay, again, we could see further push to the upside, but if the US dollar goes up, this will fall more than likely, but we could see a further first move to the upside short term before we get that fall. Okay, and taking a look at silver. Silver, okay, just like gold, big drop, right? And right back down into the support area and looking to bounce back now. So are we done with silver to the downside? Let's take a look. Could be, and we could be getting a bounce back to the upside. And so we'll see how that plays out during the week here. Okay, US 2000, this is a Russell 2000 on the weekly. Just similar to Mexican peso, having serious issues now trying to break through these highs, but it's trying again. As you can see, it's a consolidation area, and it's trying very hard to break through. You can see that we're completely sideways there. Okay, so very choppy, very volatile, but the push is to the upside. So continued strength in the US 2000 for the remainder of the week, it looks like. Okay, so US 30 on this is the Dow on the weekly. Very, very strong last week going into that. Like I said, pushing towards new highs, and it's still going to be continuing to push towards new highs going into this week as well. US 500 probably the same type of scenario, pushing still strongly to the upside, and I would look for continued strength going into this week as well. On of course, unless some kind of something really adverse occurs, but you can see we could, of course, come back down to test this area again before we go. So it does look pretty strong at this point, however. And lastly, the US technology group, similar to the rest, very strong to the upside, all into new territory. And it too, if you drew a trend line, you can see that we're hugging that trend line to the upside. So I'll continued movements after this pullback, continued movements to the upside. So that's a look at what's setting up for the week. So profitable trading to everyone. Keep your eyes on the US dollar if you're playing the majors, and be safe. I'm done now. Thank you.